25.20 is right around the corner, as this is going to be the patch that Worlds is played on. It's a champion changes only patch, as we have got 14 different champions being adjusted. So let's give you guys the rundown as to what we can expect to reach live servers on this upcoming Wednesday, October 8th. Alright, so starting off with all the champions receiving buffs, Anivia is first up, as her Q cooldown is being lowered from 12 scaling to 8 seconds to 11 scaling to 7 seconds, and then E damage is going up by 5 base and all ranks. Here's the deal. Direct buffs to Anivia are pretty dang interesting because she's been a solid solo queue champ for a while now, and it's likely only being buffed so that pros consider picking her at Worlds. There's a good chance Anivia becomes OP for solo queue due to these buffs, so definitely going to be a champ to watch out for in 25.20. Katarina is going to be receiving a base stat buff with her armor being increased from 28 to 32, so those AD matchups do become a little better for her moving forward. Two buffs are penciled in for Malphite, as his base armor is going up from 37 to 40, and then E base damage is being increased from 70 scaling to 230 to 80 scaling to 240. So Malphite should be one of the better tank pickups as a result of these changes. Riot really overshot with the Pantheon Nerfs last patch, so they're partially reverting those changes. Q monster damage is going to go up from 75 to 80%, and W minion and monster damage cap is being increased from 120 to 150. Veigar is going to be given some additional scaling power on W, as the AP ratio is going up from 60 scaling to 100% to 70 scaling to 110%. Briar has been overperforming in recent patches, so she's going to be nerfed, with her passive max stacks being lowered from 7 to 5. It really looks like Riot's trying to push Volibear away from his Cosmic Drive build because they're nerfing his AP ratios for a second time. Passive AP ratio is going down from 50 to 45%, and EAP ratio is going to be lowered from 80 to 70%. Our Challenger jungler Skill Shot really does like his Black Cleaver Rush on his Volibear, so that setup is going to become a little bit more enticing moving forward. Warwick is going to be slapped with 2 nerfs for this patch, as his AD growth is going from 2.75 to 2.5, and attack speed growth is dropping from 2.3 to 2%. Orianna is going to be losing a ton of damage from her W at max rank, with the base dropping from 70 scaling to 270 to 70 scaling to 230. Now, AP ratio is going to go up, though, from 70 to 80%. Now, what this really means is that W max first will become pretty bad now. A lot of high elo Ori players have really liked maxing out their W out first, but with the base damage dropping by 40, it's likely going to sway things back in favor of a Q max in all situations. Now, whether these adjustments are a buff once you have enough AP is kind of tough to say right now, but we're going to have that answer for you in our 25.20 tier list, as we'll hop on the PBE and do a bunch of comparison tests for you. With Azir always being a hotly contested champion in pro play, it is no surprise to see him on the change list for 25.20. WAP ratio is going to go down early game, but it's going to be up at max rank. W additional target damage modifiers being changed from 25, 50, 75, and 100% at levels 1, 6, 11, and 16 to now being at 20% from levels 1 to 8, and then 28 scaling to 100% from levels 9 to 18. W recharge rate is going to go up from 10 scaling to 6 seconds to 12 scaling to 6 seconds. And then E damage is going to go up, with the base damage being increased by 10, and the AP ratio is seeing a boost from 40 to 60%. Camille is going to be losing some durability in exchange for more offensive power, as her armor growth is dropping from 5 to 4.5. However, W cooldown is dropping from 17 to 15 seconds at rank 1, and then W base damage is up by 10 at all ranks. So honestly, this is going to be a pretty nice early game buff to Camille, while she won't be quite as tanky later on into the game. We have a bunch of Fizz changes on the way, as his W passive damage over time is going up from 20 scaling to 60 to 30 scaling to 90. However, AP ratio is down from 30 to 25%. W passive damage will no longer apply to structures. W active base damage is going up from 50 scaling to 130 to 50 scaling to 150. W on hit damage is going to have its base increased from 10 scaling to 30 to 20 scaling to 40. However, AP ratio is down from 35 to 30%. Minimum R damage is being adjusted so that the base damage is up. However, the AP ratio is going down. And then max R damage is going to receive the exact same treatment, with the base up and AP ratio being lowered. So does this mean Tank Fizz makes a comeback? Hard to say. With base damage going up and AP ratios going down, it definitely incentivizes for it, but it's hard to say if a bruiser or a tank build is actually going to be viable or not. Riot is going to be shuffling some numbers around on Graves' Q damage for this patch, as Q1 base damage is going up from 45 scaling to 125 to 50 scaling to 150. However, the AD ratio is dropping from 80 to 65%. Q2 damage is being altered, with the base going from 85 scaling to 225 to 80 scaling to 260, and then AD ratio is shifting from 40 scaling to 140% to 55 scaling to 115%. So these are changes that we'll definitely have to hop on the PvE and test out to fully understand how impactful they really are going to be. So we're going to have that rundown for you guys in our 25.20 tier list, as always. For the final champion on the change list for this patch, it is going to be Wukong. Q bonus AD ratio is going down from 55 to 50%. W cooldown is going up from 20 scaling to 16 seconds to 22 scaling to 18 seconds. W damage ratio is being lowered from 35 scaling to 55% to 30 scaling to 50%. And then E base damage is going up from 80 scaling to 200 to 80 scaling to 240.
Okay guys, one last thing. Our rank up guarantee is absolutely insane. It's kind of like signing up for the gym and then just getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in Skillcapped. We obsess over making the best guides with the top players, the rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb as easy as possible. If you're ready to level up, just visit skillcap.com and literally see the difference.
So that is going to wrap everything up for the 25.20 update on all the new changes that we can expect to hit live servers this upcoming Wednesday, October 8th. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.